But Sam's been shot. We gotta get him
Slow
off.
down and this bus will explode!
Remember when a movie about public transportation somehow became the most stressful 2 hours of the 1990s? In 1994, Speed exploded into theaters from 20th Century Fox and immediately rewired what an action movie could feel like. Directed by Jan de Bont in his feature debut, the film starred Keanu Reeves as LAPD officer Jack Traven, Sandra Bullock as accidental hero Annie Porter, Dennis Hopper as bomb-loving mastermind Howard Payne, and Jeff Daniels as Jack's loyal partner Harry. The premise was beautifully simple and completely insane. A city bus rigged to explode if it drops below 50 miles per hour. Just pure momentum and zero margin for error. Today, we're counting down 15 weird facts about Speed. Stick around for number 1 because Keanu Reeves secretly trained for a stunt his director specifically told him not to do, and then did it anyway. Now, before we jump in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hype this video. It helps YouTube show this to more retro movie fans just like you. Alright, put your foot on the gas and let's go with number 15. The impossible bus jump was proven fake. You know the moment, the freeway gap. The bus sailing through open air like Los Angeles just forgot how roads work. It's one of the most famous action shots of the 1990s, and it almost looked nothing like that. Early drafts of the script included a bus jump, but it was a much smaller moment. Then, director Jan de Bont went location scouting on the unfinished I-105 freeway, saw a massive gap in the overpass, and thought what every responsible filmmaker thinks.
To me, acting is so difficult. I think it's the most difficult part of making a movie.
What if we launch a bus across that? What started as a modest stunt in the screenplay became the most absurd and unforgettable set piece of the entire movie. There was just one tiny issue though: physics. In 2009, Mythbusters confirmed what every high school science teacher already suspected. It's flat out impossible. A 15-ton city bus on flat pavement would nosedive the moment the front wheels left the edge. So, how did they pull it off? A hidden kicker ramp built just before the gap. On the first attempt, the stunt driver missed the ramp and destroyed the bus entirely.
My knowledge, nobody had ever jumped a bus the distance and the height that we had jumped this one.
The second attempt landed it almost too well. The bus flew so far it wiped out one of the cameras on the other side, and the stunt driver was suspended in a shock-absorbing harness the entire time, because a normal seated landing could have shattered his spine. Mythbusters busted it. Physics hates it. But in 1994, in a dark theater, nobody cared. The bus flew, the audience lost their minds, and de Bont's spur-of-the-moment idea became the single image most people think of when they hear the word Speed. Number 14, Sandra Bullock really learned to drive a bus. Before Speed turned Sandra Bullock into America's new favorite action star, she did something most actors would politely avoid. She learned how to actually drive a bus.
I needed an actress who really you could believe that she could drive this bus.
She went out and earned a commercial driver's license and reportedly passed the test on the first try. Now, Hollywood still protected its investment. For the high-risk shots, the bus was rigged with a special steering pod on the roof where a stunt driver controlled the vehicle while Bullock acted below.
Miss, can you handle this bus?
Oh, sure. It's just like driving a really big Pinto.
I need to know, can you handle this bus?
I'm fine.
Safety first, movie magic second. But that didn't mean she was along for the ride. In plenty of sequences, she was genuinely managing the weight, the turns, and the physical presence of that bus in traffic. And some of those collisions where the bus plows through cars was real metal meeting real metal. Bullock's training came in handy because when you're navigating a massive vehicle through staged chaos, you can't fake the physics. You either understand the machine or you become part of the wreckage. What makes Speed work isn't just the explosions though, is that you believe Annie could actually keep that bus above 50.
There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed.
And that belief comes from the small details. The way she grips the wheel, the weight in the turns, the panic mixed with control. Number 13, studio execs panicked over Keanu's hair. In 1994, Speed was a high-stakes thriller about a bus rigged with explosives hurling through Los Angeles. But the real emergency on set had nothing to do with bombs, It was Keanu Reeves' haircut.
Very important, and he's exhibited that interest and belief.
Director Jan de Bont had a clear vision for Jack Traven. Clean-cut, militaristic, completely separated from the surfer vibes of Point Break. He wanted audiences to forget Johnny Utah the second the movie started. So, Keanu went to the barber, and he didn't just trim it. He nearly buzzed the whole thing off. When he showed up on set looking like he'd enlisted overnight, 20th Century Fox executives reportedly lost it. This was early 90s Keanu, after all. He was a grunge-era heartthrob, the guy whose flowing hair had been selling movie posters and decorating bedroom walls for years. Now he looked like he could field strip a rifle blindfolded.
I don't care about your crime. Whatever you did, I'm sure that you're sorry.
Studio heads were so rattled, they allegedly feared audiences wouldn't recognize him, or worse, they wouldn't find him attractive anymore. There were actual conversations about delaying the shoot over hair. Some executives even floated the idea of putting him in a wig until it grew back. Imagine the most relentless action movie of the decade with Keanu in a suspiciously fluffy action wig bouncing around every explosion. De Bont refused to budge. This was the look. End of discussion.
Keanu, has all the talent. He's an incredible actor. He's very physical. He's extremely good looking.
By the time filming fully ramped up, the hair had grown out about half an inch, enough to calm the suits down. Number 12, almost every big 90s star passed on it. It's hard to imagine Speed without Keanu Reeves, but Hollywood sure tried. Before Reeves ever stepped onto that bus, the role of Jack Traven made the rounds through what feels like half the A-list of the early 90s.
Went sour, now he's a little pissed at me.
What does that have to do with us?
Nothing.
Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, Wesley Snipes, Woody Harrelson. If you had cheekbones and a studio deal in '93, your agent got the script, and most of them said no. Some passed quietly. Others weren't sold on what was, at the time, a very simple pitch. It's about a bus. Not exactly a hard sell over cocktails. Then there's Stephen Baldwin. He was reportedly the production's first choice, and he turned it down because he felt the role was too similar to Bruce Willis in Die Hard. That's a bold reason to walk away from what became one of the biggest action movies of the decade.
Come on, don't look down.
Director Jan de Bont eventually watched Point Break and saw something different in Keanu Reeves. Not the loudest guy in the room, not built like a walking action figure, but someone who felt human. Ironically, Reeves himself almost passed too. He reportedly wasn't a fan of the original script, calling it Die Hard mixed with some kind of screwball comedy. It took an uncredited rewrite before Reeves reconsidered. The biggest action hero of 1994 was the guy who almost didn't get on the bus. Number 11, Paramount originally backed out. Before Speed became the movie that redefined 90s action, one studio looked at it and hit the brakes.
He's here.
You could have blown that thing from Pacoima.
No.
Paramount Pictures was the first to show serious interest in Graham Yost's script. They read it, they liked it, and they leaned in, but then they panicked. Paramount executives reportedly worried audiences would get bored watching what was essentially a 2-hour commute with explosives.
Everybody hold on!
The premise felt too contained and too much like public transportation to carry a blockbuster, so they passed. Yost and director Jan de Bont didn't let it die. They took the script to 20th Century Fox, the studio behind Die Hard, and the conversation changed completely. Fox saw the potential but wanted the scope expanded before they'd commit. The filmmakers agreed to open things up, and Fox greenlit the project. There was another shift too. While the project was at Paramount, action star Jeff Speakman, best known for The Perfect Weapon, had been attached to play Jack Traven. When Fox took over, Speakman was dropped, and the long, chaotic casting search that eventually landed on Keanu Reeves officially began.
Get off.
What?
Get off this. Now, get off this.
Paramount looked at a bus and saw a risk. Fox looked at that same bus and saw a franchise. Number 10, the movie nearly ran out of money. For a movie about not slowing down, Speed very nearly stalled out. By the time production reached the final act, the budget was running on fumes. The subway derailment, that massive metal twisting sparks flying finale, was a late addition to the script. Bigger scale, bigger destruction, bigger bill, and they hadn't filmed it yet because the money simply wasn't there. When 20th Century Fox scheduled its first test screening, the subway crash didn't exist on film. Instead, audiences got animated storyboards filling in for the finale. 2 hours of white-knuckle bus tension followed by what essentially looked like a very intense PowerPoint presentation. The audience went wild anyway. They were so locked into the tension that they barely cared the ending was a cartoon. That reaction told the studio everything it needed to know.
As the train picks up speed and derails, it ultimately slams into a concrete column, splits one of the cars in two.
Fox approved the extra money. The subway crash got built, filmed, and destroyed in glorious practical chaos. One of the most memorable action endings of the 90s nearly stayed a storyboard sketch, saved by a test audience that refused to stop cheering for a movie that wasn't even finished yet. Number 9, audiences refused to leave their seats. Every studio has metrics. Box office projections, tracking numbers, focus groups. Speed had something better. People walking backward to the bathroom.
There's a gap in the road up ahead. It's big.
You're kidding! How big?
During an early test screening, Fox marketing chief Tom Sherrick was doing what executives do, standing in the lobby, watching the exits, counting how many people bail during a 2-hour movie. Because normally, people bail. Popcorn runs, bathroom breaks, a quick stretch, especially in action movies where you can figure you can miss a minute and survive. Not this time though. As the bus sequence ramped up, Sherrick noticed something he'd never seen before. People would stand up to head for the restroom, but they wouldn't turn around. They kept their eyes locked on the screen and shuffled backward down the aisle. Full-grown adults moonwalking toward the exit because they couldn't risk losing visual contact with Keanu and Sandra for even a second.
Hey, and wait a minute, an escort to where? Where do we get an escort to?
Look out!
The lobby stayed empty. The concession stand collected dust. An entire theater full of people collectively decided their bladders could wait. That's when Sherrick knew they had a hit. They didn't need a complicated marketing plan or gimmicks. The movie was the hook. The pacing did all the heavy lifting on its own. The audience wasn't just watching a vehicle, they were watching people they didn't want to see explode. And that emotional investment is what kept every seat warm and every aisle empty. Number 8, the bus was originally the entire movie. In Graham Yost's early drafts, Speed was primarily a bus movie. There was material behind it, but the bus dominated the screenplay to the point where almost everything else felt like a footnote. One vehicle, one very bad day on public transportation, and not much breathing room outside of it.
We're at the airport.
The concern from studios was simple. 2 hours trapped on a city bus felt too contained for a big screen action movie. To be fair, that's already most people's commute. Director Jan de Bont suggested opening the film with an elevator rescue, inspired by a real moment when he once got trapped in one himself. Most people would process that experience with a complaint to building management. De Bont processed it by turning it into a blockbuster set piece. That elevator scene changed the movie's entire rhythm. Now, the audience meets Jack Traven as a proven hero before the bus even enters the picture. Howard Payne gets introduced, the stakes are set, the fuse is lit, and the bus hasn't even started its engine yet. Then came the ending. Yost's original version had the bus crashing into the Hollywood sign, which is a very 90s way to treat a landmark. The filmmaker swapped it for a subway showdown instead. A final charge of terrain and one last reminder that this movie
We have police orders to return to the station, westbound 501. Do you copy?
You have to hold this.
refuses to slow down. Okay, we're halfway through this video, so I'm going to take a quick pause before this bus hits another obstacle. If you're enjoying this deep dive into one of the most relentless action movies of the 90s, hit that like button. It tells YouTube you want more stories about movies that had absolutely no business being this good. And hey, drop a comment with your favorite Speed moment. Now, let's keep this bus above 50 with number 7. The movie started because someone misremembered another movie. Speed exists because of a mistake, a genuinely beautiful mistake. Screenwriter Graham Yost was chatting with his dad, Canadian TV host Elwee Yost, when his father brought up the 1985 thriller Runaway Train. According to Dad, the train couldn't stop because there was a bomb on board. One problem, there was no bomb. His dad made that up. The train went out of control because of a mechanical failure, but Elwy Yost apparently decided that wasn't dramatic enough and rewrote the movie in his own head. Instead of correcting the record, Graham ran with it. If a bomb on a train was that gripping as a fake memory, imagine it as a real movie. He started with a train, but trains are predictable. They run on tracks, they go in straight lines. You can see the ending coming, literally. So he moved the bomb to a city bus. Now you've got traffic, intersections, pedestrians, and a vehicle full of regular commuters who signed up for public transportation, not a hostage situation on wheels.
I'm Jack Traven, LAPD. We have a slight situation on the bus here.
That shift turned a solid concept into something genuinely terrifying, because a bus in downtown LA has nowhere safe to go and no clean way to stop. One misremembered movie in Hollywood had a bus that couldn't slow down. Number 6, the speed limit used to be way less intense. Here's something that almost ruined Speed before it even left the garage. In Graham Yost's first draft, the bomb was set to explode if the bus dropped below 20 miles per hour.
50! Stay above 50! All right?
20! That's not terrifying, that's a cautious mall parking lot. A city bus can maintain 20 miles per hour without breaking a sweat. That's barely a jog for public transportation. You could sip a coffee, argue about directions, and still have time to check your mirrors. Then a friend read the script and delivered the note that saved the entire movie. Make it 50. And everything changed.
Remember, no big movements. Just look whipped.
That ain't gonna be too hard.
50 miles per hour through downtown LA is aggressive. Every intersection becomes a coin toss. Every merging car is a potential obituary. You can't crawl through side streets anymore. You're forced onto freeways, boxed in, fully committed. The bus isn't just moving, it's charging. That one upgrade turned the concept from mildly stressful commute into a white-knuckle panic attack with a steering wheel.
Check.
Yeah.
Look.
At 20, the driver has options. At 50, those options evaporate. That relentless pressure is a huge reason Speed still holds up. The audience never gets a chance to breathe because the bus can't either. Number 5, the movie was almost called Minimum Speed. Let's all take a second and be grateful. Because Speed, the lean, punchy title that practically yells at you from a VHS shelf, was almost called Minimum Speed. That's not a thriller, that's a DMV pamphlet. Graham Yost had the working title locked in during early drafts, and logically, it made sense. The bomb goes off if the bus drops below a certain speed. Minimum speed.
Focus, Jack. Your concern is the bus. And don't try to call. The radio's down.
Technically, it's accurate, and it's absolutely the wrong energy for a movie about a bus loaded with terrified commuters hurtling through Los Angeles like a missile with a route number. The word minimum was the problem. It sounds cautious. It sounds like a warning label on a school zone sign. It carries the exact opposite energy of what the movie needed, so Yost did the smartest thing he could have done. He deleted one word. Yost himself later joked about how much titles matter by pointing at the sequel, Speed 2, Cruise Control. Cruise Control. That's literally the button you press when you want to relax and stop thinking about the accelerator. Not exactly the vibe you want for an action franchise. Minimum Speed sounds like a suggestion. Speed sounds like a command.
I'm telling you, honey, he's somewhere jerking off.
He didn't have to get on the bus in the first place, Ortiz.
And that one-word title became as much a part of the film's identity as the bus itself. Number 4, River Phoenix's death affected Keanu Reeves. Speed is remembered as a non-stop adrenaline rush, but when filming began in late 1993, the mood on set was a lot heavier than the movie lets on. On October 31st of 1993, River Phoenix passed away at 23. For Keanu Reeves, this wasn't distant Hollywood news. The two had become close friends while filming My Own Private Idaho, and that bond carried well beyond the set.
I can't talk about My Own Private Idaho without talking about River. Extraordinary person.
Speed was already in production when it happened, and director Jan de Bont noticed the shift immediately. Reeves became quiet and withdrawn. To de Bont's credit, he handled it well. Instead of charging ahead with the film's most demanding scenes, he quietly adjusted the shooting schedule. He started Reeves with action setups and technical work, less emotionally heavy material that gave him room to ease back in at his own pace. No big conversations about it, just a director reading the room and protecting his lead. Between takes, Reeves reportedly kept to himself.
You know, at the core of this, at the center of this was River.
Spending time in his trailer reading Hamlet, Shakespeare, and Solitude. That may be the most Keanu coping mechanism I've ever heard of. Sandra Bullock also felt the loss. She had recently worked with Phoenix and later spoke about how deeply Reeves was affected during production. It's a strange contrast watching Reeves sprint across rooftops and leap onto moving buses in the finished film, knowing that just off camera, he was carrying real grief. Number 3, one bus had no windshield. You know those intense close-ups in Speed where Keanu is gripping the wheel and Sandra is panicking inches from the camera? Notice how there's never any glare on the glass? Well, that's because there wasn't any glass. Out of the 12 GM New Look buses used during filming, one was modified in the most beautifully low-tech way imaginable. They ripped the windshield out completely. The crew nicknamed it the Pope Mobile, and it's easy to see why. The reason was simple: reflections. In the 90s, you couldn't digitally erase glare in post-production. If the sun hit the glass wrong, you'd see crew members, lighting rigs, and probably a guy eating a sandwich in the background. So instead of fighting the problem, they eliminated it entirely. That open front allowed the camera to sit directly in front of Keanu and Sandra, capturing every ounce of panic without distortion. It's a big reason those close-ups feel so raw and immediate. There's literally nothing between the audience and the actors. Number 2, the dialogue was mostly rewritten at the last minute. Speed is famous for explosions, but it became legendary because of one line. Pop quiz, hotshot.
When I find you.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
That line alone is tattooed on the 90s, and here's the twist. Graham Yost created the concept, the bomb, the bus, the villain, the entire engine, but 1 week before filming began, 20th Century Fox brought in a secret weapon, Joss Whedon. Before Buffy, before the Avengers, Whedon was the guy studios quietly called when a script needed sharper teeth. He came in and reportedly rewrote close to 90% of the finished dialogue. He sharpened Howard Payne's taunts. He gave Jack Traven dry, grounded responses instead of generic action hero swagger. He turned Annie from a punchline machine into a capable, real person who just happened to be gripping the steering wheel when everything went sideways. And yes, he wrote Pop Quiz Hotshot. Yost has joked that he's happy to take credit for it at parties, but the snap, the rhythm, and the menace in that line is Whedon's fingerprint all over it. The bus was the hook, the stunts were the spectacle, but the dialogue is the reason people are still quoting this movie 3 decades later. Yost built the engine, Whedon gave it a voice, 7 days before the cameras rolled. Number 1, Keanu did a stunt the director told him not to. There's a very specific moment in Speed that makes every insurance company twitch. Jack Traven floors a Jaguar, lines it up, and launches himself from the moving car onto a speeding bus.
And when he's underneath that bus, that's him. It's no double.
It's clean, it's smooth, it's completely insane, and director Jan de Bont did not want Keanu Reeves anywhere near it. From day one, de Bont was clear. The lead actor was not doing that jump. Keanu had other ideas. Despite being told to stay put, he quietly started training with the stunt team anyway. On the day of the shoot, Reeves insisted he was doing it. De Bont was reportedly terrified, rightfully so, but Keanu went for it anyway and nailed it in one take. And you can feel the difference. There's something about knowing the real actor is in the shot. The weight shift, the timing, the tension, it's not simulated. The audience might not consciously know it, but their gut does. Not every stunt in Speed was Keanu though. The subway derailment used miniatures and doubles, but that Jaguar to bus leap, that was all him. No permission, no safety net of studio approval, just a guy who decided the movie needed to be real and made sure it was. Sometimes the best movies aren't the ones that follow the plan, they're the ones that refuse to slow down. And that's 15 weird and wild facts about Speed. A movie built on rejected actors, a rewritten script, a budget held together with duct tape, and one guy who jumped onto a moving bus just because he felt like it. Which fact caught you off guard? Drop it in the comments, and if you know someone who still answers the phone with Pop Quiz Hotshot, send them this video. They've earned it. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss a deep dive, and until next time, keep your foot on the gas because this is Remember When.